Hi there, I'm Jess and welcome to my channel, Buried in Ink. Today I wanted to do a special palette of fountain pen inks just for the holidays. So we have New Year's coming up and I'm not sure how you guys like to spend the holidays, but I'm kind of a homebody, so I never really participate much in traditional New Year's activities. I'm not really big on watching like the ball drop or going and watching fireworks or anything like that, but and definitely not a party person. I'm more of a, stay at home, cuddling with my cats, reading a good book. But I do like that New Year's is kind of a great chance to, I think, start a new season. I always look forward to, I think, that really fresh feeling of starting a new year and a new planner. For all of you planner folks, I love having, that brand new fresh planner to get started with. So I like that kind of a celebratory feeling of New Year's and New Year's Eve. So I decided that today I wanted to go ahead and do a palette of fountain pen inks just for New Year's. And when I think of New Year's, I think of honestly kind of over the top gaudy colors. I think of a night sky with fireworks in the background. So a lot of like really dark, saturated, moody colors, but also, those bright colors and tons of shimmer and sparkle. So today's palette is going to really reflect all of those things. So to get started, the first ink today is an ink by Colorverse, and this is called Félicette. And I had to look this up because I thought that the little cat image on the bottle was so cute, and I know that Colorverse has kind of a reason behind most of the names for their inks. So I did decide to look it up, and I found out that Félicette was actually the first cat to be launched into space. She was a black and white Parisian stray that was purchased by the French government and launched into space in 1963. And at least according to what I was able to find through Colorverse, she was the only cat to have survived space flight. So this ink was made to celebrate a very, very cool space cat, which I'm a huge fan of. So all of today's inks are going to be shimmers, so they will all require some agitation to make sure we get plenty of that New Year's sparkle in our palette. So as you can see, this one is going to be a really bright reddish pink. And as it dries, you're going to see some very, very heavy gold shimmer. This is a huge sparkler, which I think is perfect for this palette. There's another Colorverse ink that I was very tempted to use for this palette, and I really went back and forth on which ink I should use, but I decided to go with Félicette in the end because it's so bright. It is kind of a really bright, almost gaudy color, and it just felt right for that, New Year's party type atmosphere. As the ink sits on the paper, you can kind of start to see already it darken into more of that reddish tone. It goes down very, very vibrant pink, but it does kind of settle into much more of a reddish pink as it dries. So the next ink in my collection, I also had another Colorverse ink that felt really perfect for this. It's an ink I really, really love called Horsehead Nebula, but I had to go with this one instead. This is a Robert Oster ink. I think it was an exclusive maybe with another store, possibly maybe Endless, but I'm not sure. You'd have to look it up. I had to go with this one because it's actually called New Year, New Hue. And this is from 2023. Oh, it actually says right on the cap, this was an exclusive with Endless pens. This is very similar, actually, in shade to Horsehead Nebula. And I think this one is really fun to go alongside Félicette. It's a little more purpley red. And I think the shimmer is more of like a blue tone or purple. It's pretty aggressive with my shaking, so there's quite a few bubbles in here, but that shouldn't cause too much of a problem. I love how rich this color is. This is one I've inked up actually multiple times. I think in my Home Dean pens. And it's performed pretty well. I have had some very minor clogging, but I do have a tendency to have way too many pens inked up at one time, which means that sometimes the ink sits in those pens for a very long period of time, and particularly with shimmer inks, that can cause some issues with clogging. One thing you can run into with some of these more saturated inks, because I do tend to generally use much less saturation in my inks, these darker colors are a little more difficult sometimes to clean off of your nibs. So this next ink, I have a slightly contentious relationship with at the moment. In my last video, I actually mentioned that so many folks have kind of a gripe with the Ferris wheel press bottles, particularly this 38 milliliter size. A lot of people call them like a hockey puck ink, so you kind of see why. And they are a little tippy, and I mentioned in my last video that, you know, I've been doing this hobby for years, have never actually had a major incident, and that I was due for one. Definitely jinxed myself while I was playing around and trying to choose this palette this past week. I actually went ahead and spilled this bottle not once but twice all over my desk. I actually still have some in my nail beds. It got all over my hands, all over my desk, stained my white desk, ruined the materials I was working with at the time. And I did lose almost 2/3 of the bottle, so definitely had, you know, my first lovely incident. So I am going to go ahead and use, I think they call this an ink carriage. I agree with a lot of folks, you shouldn't have to have some, like an accessory to use with your ink to make sure that it doesn't spill over, but it is a beautiful thing to have, and it is a little bit fun, I think, to use alongside the ink. So I'm going to be slightly more responsible today and actually use the ink carriage that I have, so that I hopefully don't make the same mistake I did this week and end up with ink absolutely everywhere. So as you can see, this ink is really deep blue, and we're going to have both silver and gold shimmer. Oh, you could probably see on the bottle, I don't think I actually mentioned the color name. This is Stroke of Midnight by Ferris Press. This is an ink I think a lot of folks really love. It was a limited edition ink. I'm not sure what year it came out. A few years ago, I think. And unfortunately, it is one that's difficult to find. Luckily for me, after my big spill, I looked at I have so many inks. I have a spreadsheet to track them, and I actually do have backstock of this ink, and I'm glad that I did that. Usually I think that I'm a little ridiculous for even purchasing backstock when I have so many different inks, but in this case I'm glad that I did, since I lost so much of it in one fell swoop. This is another one that I have had inked in pens, and I have found it to be quite well behaved. Starting to see some of that beautiful, I think it's purple shimmer coming through in New Year, New Hue. And I think Stroke of Midnight is really aptly named. It is just that beautiful kind of midnight blue. Makes me think of the night sky, kind of that backdrop for those New Year's fireworks. So next up is a completely different brand I haven't used on this channel yet. It's called Journalize. They are a little pricey for the size, at least at the retailers I've been able to find it at so far. They have a few different collections. This was part of their Starry Night collection. This particular bottle is called Deepspace Aurora. This is going to be another deep, deep, dark blue. But unlike Stroke of Midnight, this is going to have an extreme amount of green shimmer. So to me, this looks like the night sky with actual fireworks in it. This one is always exciting to see as it dries. Because they are a little on the pricey side, I only have, I think, a handful of Journalize inks, but every one that I've purchased so far has been really, really gorgeous. But one thing I have noticed with them is that the amount of shimmer seems so much more extreme than in most of my other brands. And I have noticed that there does seem to be transfer with that shimmer. So once the ink is dry, I have had issues with just, touching it, or even having it touch another page and that shimmer coming off and transferring. So this is maybe a brand, at least from my experience, to take a little extra care with. I think when I'm done with this, what I may do is spray some fixative on here like you would use for, charcoals or an art project, to try and avoid some of that transfer. I don't know if it'll work, but I figure it can't hurt. Not sure if it's showing up on camera, but I am already able to see so much of that green shimmer, even though it's still very wet. Okay, now that we've readjusted the guide sheet, we can move on to our next ink. So this next one is another Colorverse ink, and this was one of the most popular inks from last year's Colorvent Advent calendar from 2024. So this is called Milky Way, and with that calendar, one interesting thing I guess that they did, it's a little different from the Diamine calendar. The Diamine one I actually really appreciate. They eventually, I think it's usually about 6 months later, usually June, Diamine will release every single ink that they brought out for their calendar. They will release them as a full-size bottle later on that is available for purchase, which is great. I don't like to buy the full calendar because there's always several that I just don't really care for. I'm usually only really interested in about half or less of the inks, and I also really don't like the plastic bottles that they come in. Colorverse just started doing their advent calendar last year, so it's still a pretty new thing for them. And at least last year, what they decided to do, instead of releasing everything in full-size bottles later, was to allow everyone who purchased the advent calendar to vote and pick their top 3 choices for their favorites, and then they would take the top 3 winners and release full size for them. It would be, I think, 65 milliliter bottles at a later time, which they did, and this was one of the top inks that got voted on. I actually did purchase it last year, and I did vote for this color, so I was very happy to see it win. It's just really beautiful color. Deep, deep violet, and it has just this stunning blue shimmer. Next up, I usually don't keep my Wearingeul inks in their boxes. This one, though, I had a bit of an issue with when I first received it. This was an order from Atlas Stationers, and this particular bottle, this is Hades by Wearingeul, had a cracked cap. It was packaged very well. It wasn't Atlas's fault. So you can see probably in this box, the ink had leaked, and I didn't actually lose very much of the actual ink. However, because the cap was cracked, I knew that it wouldn't store well. So Atlas was great. They went ahead and sent me an entire new bottle. And because the ink that I had, because there was so much of it left, I decided to save what I could and put it in a different bottle that I happened to have at the time. So that is why this ink is not in its correct bottle. I'm trying to use this up before I move on to what I think of as like the real bottle. So this is a bit of a departure for me. When I do palettes, I usually don't add a black ink, but for New Year's it felt like kind of like I had to. So this is a really beautiful black ink with blue shimmer. I thought it looked really, really pretty with Milky Way. This is one that I actually do have currently inked in one of my Sailor pens. It's actually a really, really nice match. Show you that pen really quickly. So this pen, I don't know if you can see it, is a great match with it because it's that black and it has both silver and blue shimmer in it. I originally started out with Diamine's Night Sky in that pen, which was actually my very first shimmer ink that I ever purchased. And it was a really great combo. That ink is black with silver shimmer. And it did look really beautiful in there. It was an ink that I left in there for several months at a time. Never had any issues with a hard start or anything like that. But when I got Hades, I decided I had to put this in there since it was a perfect color match. And so far, I think I've had it in there for maybe 3 months. And same thing, I'm not noticing any evaporation, no hard starts. It's been very, very nice in that pen. The ink that they made to go along with this, Persephone, is also a big favorite of mine. It is so beautiful. It's dark purple with purple shimmer. And it will definitely be making an appearance in one of these palettes. As these start to dry, I hope it's showing up on camera, but the shimmer is really starting to pop on all of these, and this really does make me think of fireworks. I'm really excited by this. Okay, so this next ink is actually pretty brand new for me. Ferris Press did a Harry Potter collection, and this one, of course, for New Year's, I had to do a silver and a gold. So this is my silver choice, and this is called The Mirror of Erised. And it is a very pale gray with some really intense shimmer. It ends up, at least in the few swatches that I've done so far, looks just like a disco ball to me. So I got really excited when I saw this and I was trying to find a good silver for this palette. I got really excited about this ink. A little more. There we go. I have not yet inked this up. Like I said, it is a new ink for me, so I don't know how it performs in a pen. It is fairly pale. It's probably not a choice for everyone. I think this would be a really, really fun one for artwork though. So if you do any type of like watercolors with your inks, or any other type of artwork with fountain pen ink, I think this would be a really fun ink to play with. I definitely will ink this up at some point though, to see how it does. This might be one that I use a slightly larger nib size than usual for. Maybe I would even try like a medium, which is, I don't think I have anything bigger than a medium. I've never tried a broad. I'm definitely a finer nib girl for sure. Starting to see a little chroma shading here as well. At least I think so. It looks like there's going to be a few other colors that maybe pop up here. maybe some blues, possibly even pink or purple, to see as it dries. And our last ink for this palette is another Robert Oster ink. This one's going to take, I think, quite a bit of agitation. So for my December palette for Christmas, I actually used one of my absolute favorite gold inks, and that's Wearingeul's A Star Spattered Hill. This one is another of my favorite golds. It is a totally different shade of gold though. A Star Spattered Hill is a little bit more, I think, like Pelican's Golden Barrel. It's a lighter, very bright gold. This one is darker, but the gold shimmer is very intense, and I don't know, this just feels like a perfect New Year's gold to me. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. Oh my goodness. This ink is called Heart of Gold. Starting to run out there a bit. A tiny bit more. There we go. Okay, this is already looking so nice. I'm really happy with this. We will come back once it's a little more dry and take a look at everything together. Okay, now that these inks have had a little bit of time to dry, I'm going to take a look, and I am so pleased with how this turned out. This really does remind me of a night sky with fireworks, and I think these top two in particular kind of just remind me of like, I don't know, party dresses for New Year's. In addition to our guide sheet, in addition to fireworks. So taking a closer look, you can see all of that gold shimmer in Félicette. It's looking a little bit more pink, I think, on my end than it is on camera, but it is definitely that fun, bright reddish pink. Reminds me a little bit of Pilot Oroshizuku Momoji. Robert Oster's New Year, New Hue. That really pretty magenta purple with bright purple shimmer. Definitely a party hue. Stroke of Midnight, my ink catastrophe, but look how pretty that is. This is such a nice ink. It's that deep midnight blue with gold and silver shimmer. Deepspace Aurora, I think you can see what I was talking about earlier. That green shimmer is just loaded in there, and this absolutely makes me think of fireworks. It's a little more difficult to see on camera, but there is also a ton of shimmer in the writing sample. Colorverse Milky Way, that deep violet with blue shimmer. Also, again, just tons of shimmer in the writing sample as well. I think you can see that on camera a little bit better than you could with Deepspace Aurora. Wearingeul Hades, that black with blue shimmer. The Mirror of Erised, I am a little obsessed with this ink right now. That just looks like a disco ball to me. And it's not super in your face, but there is a little bit of chroma shading in here. Some very subtle pinky purples and the blue. And this one also has blue shimmer. And Heart of Gold, again, like Deepspace Aurora, this is just loaded with shimmer. Let's see if I can get to that too. There we go. And even the writing sample, like you almost can't even see the base color. It is just all shimmer. Absolutely loving the over-the-top, like almost gaudiness of this palette. So let me know, what are you doing for New Year's? Do you like to go out? Do you like to go to a party? Do you like to go and watch fireworks? I live in South Florida. A lot of people here like to go to Disney. I've done that for New Year's before and it was fun. But my favorite New Year's way to celebrate is just to, stay home and have a cozy night with my family, with my cats, my dog, usually maybe a cup of chai and a nice book, closing out the year and getting ready to start a new one. Until next time, thank you.